What's up, everybody? We're back. Natural Freedom League, episode 2, part 2, moral law messaging for the masses, with Will Teller and special guest Chris Jantzen. Okay,
hello.
Where we left off, we have also talked about the importance of the pamphlet or the newsletter that you're handing out. And what I've currently produced is basically what's on my website, which is really a brief explanation of natural law that I basically took from an interview with Mark Passio. And I felt like it was a really concise way to explain what we're talking about. I changed up the words a little bit, but basically the ideas came straight from there. And then we added in some information about the agenda against natural law. So we have the information that I got from Derek Brose of the Conscious Resistance, which is his Exposed Bill Gates Day information, which kind of delves into not only Bill Gates, but just all the companies that he's invested in and what the bigger agenda behind all of this COVID and vaccination program and really everything that Bill Gates has his hands in, which is why he's the focal point. But so anyway, our pamphlet has that information, but we have discussed how the things that we're talking about here, this is really why we're doing this episode, because it's really us working this out on the go, that the pamphlet needs to be even tighter. Like it needs to flow from natural law information, the basic information, to the agenda against natural law and how that occurs and how that affects us, and then into some of the more specific issues. I feel that, again, that's where our experience from being out and talking to people is now helping us to see what points we need to attack in terms of questions people may ask and ways to approach providing them that information. I'll throw in here real quick before I hand it over to Chris, but I'm gonna put this topic. Will had mentioned creating a binder of information that would be organized in a way where you may not have flyers of everything, but maybe you have a couple of copies of each. And if, this certain issue comes up, someone raises some issue, whatever it might be, you're prepared and you go into your little binder and you take a copy out and like, well, here's some information on that. So yeah, the information that you're handing out to people needs to be engaging as well.
That's an ongoing tricky battle of exactly what to type up and how to handle it to people. The best success I've had have been actually on that account, writing things on the internet. But I have noticed when we've been out there by the beach, with the signs and everything, what's really cool is when we actually get someone to take the pamphlet, it's almost more that they took it, than anything else. Just like we caught a fish, they actually came and took our information. So of course, yeah, we do need to work on exactly what that information they're taking away is. But I'm kind of one of those people, like when I'm at a fair or I'm walking around and people try to hand me pieces of paper, I'm like, no paper, I don't like taking a bunch of pieces of paper. So I feel like for me, the business card I really like, because on my business card is the website. And if someone is actually curious and they take the time to type in the website, like there, I've really had an opportunity to organize my thoughts. And like when I did my video presentation series, like I really spent a lot of time in what order I would bring things up. And that way, if someone gets partway into I've had this happen with people I've shared my video series with, they get partway into like episode 2 or episode 3, and they can only take so much, and that's where they kind of stop for a while. And maybe they'll come back later and come check out episode 4 or 5 where it gets into some of the more difficult material. And I think that's something like what I've talked with Will about, and I know he's working on too, is having this stuff that's on the internet that we can send people to. When we're out there in public, we're just trying to get you're just trying to catch a fish. You're trying to get them interested. But once someone gets interested and they take the time to actually go to a website, there's where you can kind of lay things out and paint this whole picture, because there's really a lot to look at. I mean, part of the whole problem is, like I was saying, there's so much evil around us. We're so used to it. It's in everything. So it all kind of needs to be broken down one at a time. And it takes someone quite a bit of energy and effort to go through that process. And there's no way you're going to twist someone's arm and make someone do that. They have to get curious. They have to take the initiative. I actually wrote down, there's no miracle for obtaining things without effort. So there's no way that people are going to start to understand the depth of what the evil occultists have done in this world without some hard work and some effort. And we can't dig their hole for them. We can't dig them out of the hole. We can throw down some ropes, but they actually have to pull themselves up. So I think the best tool we have is us setting a good example, like I said before. But it also is really good to have everything well spelled out somewhere online that we can refer people to. And then whatever papers or pamphlets we hand out or business cards shoots them in that direction, if they're willing to take the time and do the hard work. And there's only a few people that are going to do that, but we're never going to find those people if we're not out there somewhere to where they can find it. And that's the hard part for us. The hard work for us is how to get out there and how to get to those people.
The great work. Yeah, it's a combination of all of it, right? I mean, you got to have your website, you got to be doing some videos or some type of online publications and promotions online, but also have that street team type promotional attitude. And with the binder, what I was thinking is like almost categorizing it into 3 stages. So when you have even a short conversation with someone, which level they're at potentially, and then you give them that one. Or and then even with the binder, just having different studies in there, so you're ready for that. And that might be a lot, but I like the flyers or the brochures, and because you can get those printed up really cheap. When I was doing music, and I was getting 5,000 flyers, and I was sticking stacks of them in liquor stores and record shops and all that kind of stuff. Same type of marketing applies with this. Really, you can go to bookstores, you can go new age shops, you can go to gun ranges, wherever, and put that stuff out. But it's a combination is what I'm getting at. And it's about finding your balance and kind of what suits you, with your skill level and what you want to focus on, and also your demographic. I mean, depending on the type of person someone is and how they want to teach, they might not want to mess around with the majority. They might want to just cut and dry, the blunt truth, and whoever's even the beginning stages of understanding and awareness, that's who they're gonna go after. So a lot of it is knowing yourself and knowing what you want to accomplish.
Right. Yeah, and Will, you had mentioned getting a banner. I've been seeing the V is for vaccine. They were in Nevada today. They've been hanging these banners from the freeways that say COVID-19 manufacturers are exempt from liability, and it's making the news. It's on, there's people, taking pictures of it and posting it. So again, these are all kind of old school tactics, but
Efficient.
they are
They're-
things.
They're
Yeah,
efficient. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are things that work, and especially with all the censorship, it's, you know, getting off the internet, getting on the streets, meeting people face to face is good for us, and it's also something we're doing more. Uh, and I think it's something I hope we inspire other people, like you said, Will, do it in your own neighborhood, you know, and just like let's start a trend. The other thing I was going to say, I agree with you, Chris, getting people to the website. And what I find for me is the stuff that I want on the newsletter or the pamphlet or the packet of information is actually the stuff I have on my website. But then from there, you know, then it's trying to link people to the deeper content.
You know, I
Um,
was just remembering how some of the progression of how we've changed our tactics since we first did the first great work at the Great Highway, where we realized some things that were working better than others. And I remember one thing we were like, man, it feels like we have too many messages here after one of the first time or the second time we did it. And a lot of people, when they would see us, the thing that would really strike them is that none of us were wearing masks, because almost everybody else out there on the beach is wearing masks. And that's been one of my pet peeve issues. So, in fact, when the whole mask thing got real big, one of the things I did online was writing a couple essays. And one of them was 10 good reasons not to wear masks and why masks are harmful behavior. And the number one reason that I hammered on, when I talk to people, is the concept of freedom. That any type of breaking down our freedom is a type of slavery, and if we allow our freedom to be um, minimized in any way, our freedom of choice, then we're allowing all of humanity to start heading down that slippery slope of being controlled and being owned, you know. And so a couple of my best works were like just short little papers about that mask issue and why it's important that we maintain freedom of choice, and why it's also part of the survival of our species on this planet, that we're able to interact with each other. And so in that way, I took one subject that really I felt passionate about, and took some time and tried to write it in several ways. And I remember the question, I think it was you, John, that said to me, like, how do we explain to people why the mask thing has to do with the truth thing, you know? And that
yeah.
was what inspired me to write up that pamphlet I made about forced masking is evil. The second writing I did on that. So I think every time we make an effort, and like I just said in the last time, like we put in the hard work, the effort of actually going out there and trying to do something, we learn something from that. And then the next time we try to do it, our message gets a little better and a little clearer. And I've been talking to people everywhere I go, any chance I get, for quite a few years now. So I feel like that's really helped me have the ability to speak with just your general whoever I might meet tomorrow, because I've been talking to people for 5 years. I already know what their objections are going to be before they even say it. So every time we try anything is a step in the right direction, and we're going to get better at it. But you got to get out there and try it and do something and make a few mistakes and say the wrong things a few times and stumble over your words before you get to the point where you're eloquent and you can just spit it out like Passio, you know? Spit it like Passio. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting better every time we do this.
Well, look what we've generated already just by getting together and or having group conversations and physically meeting and going out there on the boots on the ground. It's generating momentum, and that's how it works. So really good advice that I could give anybody that wants to start pursuing this is get out there. And every time you fuck up or you fail, that's just learning what not to do, and you'll learn great leaps from that. And so yeah, just doing it. Ain't nothing to it but to do it.
Yeah. So one thing I was thinking was good is that this was actually discussed in our meeting this weekend too, but promoting authors. And I actually borrowed the book today, Larkin Rose's The Most Dangerous Superstition. I haven't read it yet. I'm going to be honest. I know I need to, but like in terms of messaging, this is someone who has it down, and we need to use his knowledge and his expertise on the issue. Some other names I wrote down: Derek Bros. He's got a book about living off the grid when all this goes down, the freedom cells. I did write down Gary Allen, None Dare Call It Conspiracy Again. Just bring up that book. If you can get your hands on it, get it. If you go on YouTube, there's a little speech that he gives, which I think is kind of a summation of what he wrote. But also promoting other content creators, Mark Passio, Max Egan, James Corbett, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, those are people that, we're standing on their shoulders and we're trying to take it to the next level. We talked about calling in other radio shows, trying to reach other countries. I have a cousin in Holland. He's actually he's subscribed to my YouTube page. So I'm eventually going to hit him up and be like, hey man, you mind like sharing this a little bit out there? Am I like, any French people?
I think that's really important. You know why? Because I mean, even through social media, it keeps us in a bubble, so it's like you almost like literally have to search out other forums or groups in different areas, different countries, and email them, call them, old school style, and think outside the box, because that's what social medias do. It's just corralling people in their own little cul-de-sac.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's something I struggle with, is figuring out how to advertise. It's one thing you put a bunch of time and energy into work you can share with people, and then how do you actually get it out to them? And that's something I'm still battling with and struggling with. But my recent idea I'm going to pursue is looking into some of the groups of people that already have come to recognize certain things. I read a book recently called The Invisible Rainbow, and there you learn all about people that struggle and suffer from different kinds of radiation and EMF. And there's people out there that have suffered from some of the technology that has been pushed on us, and that are fearing like the 5G, for instance, that's coming in. And those people are going to be a little bit more receptive to understanding that there's a major problem, because they're scared. And so that's one possible idea that I think can be worked on, is looking for the groups of people that already have realized like their kids are damaged by the vaccines, or they suffer from a skin disease due to the weird particles that are sprayed in the geoengineering, or um, or like I said, electrical sensitivity. So that's one idea I'm going to be working on, is trying to find some of those groups and tap into those people, because they might be a little more open.
See, and I think what's cool about that is if you go down that path and you find, a network and, ways to reach these people, and you find a script or a narrative that works to getting through, then you can share that with us. We can add that to our information. We just all share that, and that's really, again, what this episode is about, is like kind of breaking it all down. The next thing here on my list, perfect segue, is finding your unique position. In other words, your niche or niche, however you pronounce it. One way that I think is important to realize what your unique position is writing your personal narrative. Now, to actually write your whole life story, is not necessarily what I mean, although I do think that that is an amazing thing to do. Not that I've done it, but even just journaling. I had this roommate in college who he would journal and he would just remember stories from his childhood and he would just write it, and write out the story as you remember it. And like over our lives, we should do that to really understand what our strengths are. And again, like once we find those and we refine whatever that is, we can all share it together. Me and Will have talked about um, teaching children natural law. I've worked with kids. That was my occupation before I became a stay-at-home dad recently. But yeah, I worked in childcare for over 20 years, had a bunch of schooling in it, and I think I have a lot to offer in that on that angle. But again, if we create something and a way or a process of teaching this information to kids, as an example, or Chris, like you just said, finding people who have been injured by all these chemicals in the system and getting them to understand what we're trying to explain to them and what the root of the problem is. Then we all bring that information together and share it and then put it out in our own websites or medium, whatever medium that may be.
I want to make an advertisement for podcasting and podcasts, because for me, podcasts were really what opened a lot of doors in terms of realization in the research I was doing. I went through a period of time in life where I had just a job where I had a lot of time. I could just put on some earphones and listen to whatever. And that was when I went through all the podcasts and all the information. I started listening to audiobooks, and that changed my life. So that inspired me to start podcasting myself. And going through that process really forced me to, the old adage, know thyself, right? Like, what is my message? What is my focus? Like, who am I? Like, what is it that I do? And I've come to realize that I'm a philosopher. I've always been a philosopher. And it's not until the last couple of years when I've been able to say that with the confidence, no, I am a philosopher. I realize I've spent a lot of time thinking about what's right and wrong and why people do the things they do. And even from an empathetic point of view, that's something that's always come naturally to me, is to understand why people feel the way they do. And partly because I want to be liked most of my life, that has forced me to try to figure out what is it that I can do that get people to pay attention to me and to like me. And then now that I'm getting to that point where I'm older in life and I don't care necessarily if people like me anymore, but I have spent a lot of time thinking about how people think and what goes on in their minds. And so I can say with confidence that I'm a philosopher. And when I talk to people and I say that I'm a philosopher, it sort of changes the tone a little bit of the conversation. And I'm able to say, bring it over to talking about morality, then doesn't seem so weird when you're talking to a philosopher, right? And then maybe to people, all of a sudden, it doesn't seem so weird to call yourself a philosopher or to be a philosopher. Maybe that's not such a far out thing, you know? And just us being examples that it is important to have people that trying to teach morality. I don't think a lot of people have ever even thought about that as something that needs to be done, or that maybe it's my job. So, I think it's really all about being good examples and knowing ourselves and knowing what we are. And we're incredibly valuable. That's one thing I know for sure. Each one of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of like the goal is, excuse me, is unity consciousness, right, on the planet. That's what we're ultimately trying to attain. So, being the change that you want to see in the world, it's cliche, but what I'm talking about is within our community, collaborating with each other and helping each other in the community of truthers. It's really important because we're trying to create the ripple effect, and when we unite, the frequency is amplified, and we can kind of help each other out and fill in the gaps. So even just general communication, just hitting somebody up, messaging somebody and talking with them and seeing how can you guys connect and collaborate. I mean, we've seen what that leads to, right? We're doing something right now, and we've done many videos already together and stuff, and we're getting out there. So it has an impact. And, I just encourage that for anybody in the community and that's teaching this information and trying to get it out there. Because ultimately it's important, because we're feeling the crunch of the effects of what this immoral behavior on an aggregate level is doing, and it's really coming in hard. And it's go time, so why not dive in? We got nothing to lose.
You got everything to lose too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right. So going back to the idea of the information we have and having it on hand and addressing specific issues, I have thought that it would be a good idea for me to kind of journal about the different interactions that I remember having, and for all of us to do that, really. So I wrote down one. There was a young person who came up to us in San Francisco, very fired up. Um, their perspective was, how would the government um, pull this off? How come nobody would tell the truth? And God was very combative with us, and we were as well. We weren't on our best behavior. And I thought about that afterwards. I was like, that's an opportunity right there. So if we can take that person in at where, especially these young people, right? It's like, take them in where they are. They're clearly, broken, it spiritually. And from what that person was saying, how do we get them? How do we transmute that into someone? Thankfully, they did take a flyer, but I felt like it was a missed opportunity. And then another example was, a man came back, he had a mask on, and he was like, well, the best thing you can do is use a mask. I mean, that's the one thing we can do to protect ourselves. And I was like, sitting in the chair, and it was just a weird day, and I was like, well, how come we never did it for the flu? And he's like, well, I did, and we should have, and so right there, if I had the information and I knew in my mind, I have the flyer right there about masks, and here's some studies that you can go look up. Here's quotes from the studies, here's some of the things that Chris has written about it, and just a flyer that just for that guy, because that was his issue, or the young person who was, their issue was about how would the government pull it off. Okay, let's have some information about, a list of the conspiracies to go look up. Go look up Operation Northwoods. Go look up Operation Paperclip. Go look up all of these things, and then you'll understand what we're talking about. We're not here to hurt you. We're here to try to show you that you've been lied to, and that there's another perspective. That's all we're here to do. And to I guess on that level, I'm talking about de-escalating a bit instead of, going back at people. And that takes a bit of discipline and practice. But also having that information on hand. We know people are going to argue with us about the masks. We should provide them with, look, because this is really what the argument is with masks. Up until April of this year, it was generally assumed you don't use masks to prevent viruses. That's a fact. and show those studies and show that information to people, because they're trying to argue that this is reality and we've got these studies. And then I do think adding in like a personal perspective, like Chris has written about it, where it's personal, but it's also sourced information.
I have a little story. Something just happened this week, John, since you're talking about that. On the job site, there's 5 guys on the crew, and we're sitting down for lunch. And the one guy kind of makes a joke about, I don't remember how it started. We were talking about money. And I remember how it started. I said, I wish I could pull out of banks completely. We were talking about frustration with banks. And he said, and he laughed it off and said, well, what are you going to do? Go to Bitcoin? And he said, that's just like air, and in my mind right away, I start going, oh, okay. That opens up a whole door of things I could talk about, but I sort of hesitated and I decided not to say anything. But my friend who's sitting next to me, he launches into, well, money is all made up and it's not based on anything. And they said, oh yeah, it's based on gold. And he said, it hasn't been based on gold since 1972. And he told them about the creature from, what's the island?
Jekyll.
The creature from Jekyll Island. And he launched all into talking about that. And I thought, wow, that's awesome. Here, my friend took that opportunity and just taught them. He did a very good job too. He told them all about how the money system is a giant con. And like knowing all these things and studying all these things and being ready to just, whenever somebody brings up a subject, being ready to like jump all over it, it never hurts. Like I was about to just kind of give up on that subject at that moment, because I feel like I'm always harping on these things and I feel like people already know. But these guys we were talking to, they really didn't know. And they were pretty curious when he was talking about it. They all sat there silently listening. And maybe that moment was that opportunity. So I guess the moral, what I'm saying for us and for our listeners right now is we got to keep studying up and keep our game strong on many levels, of different subject matter. So we're ready to jump in. But I think it's also important to bring it back. Like even on the mask thing, like I keep trying to bring it back. Nope, it's not really about all that stuff and health issues. It's about freedom. If we allow our freedom of choice to be degraded, we lose our freedom. And that's really the key. That's really the key principle. I don't want to get too lost in all the other fringe things, keep bringing them back somehow. So those are the things that pop off for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. We've got to sharpen the sword, right? Shields up, swords out. Yeah, going out to San Francisco and interacting with people, that's a really good way to kind of find your self-discipline and find your balance on how you're going to communicate face to face with people. And yeah, and there's a level of knowledge, right? Because so many people can bring up different topics. So if you're well versed in a lot of information, that helps out. But again, bringing it to the core, like you were saying, Chris, freedom and morality and objective truth. That's, I think, the focus, because you can reach anybody on that level just by getting to those basics that should be common sense.
Yeah. I was thinking about what you said too, Chris, is, what's interesting about the masks specifically is that it is a freedom issue. And even though we can argue the science, it is an interesting segue, because people will try to use the argument that somehow you are harming people by not wearing a mask. And so to really focus on that argument as opposed to the science, is that's one we need to flesh out. And I've actually,
I say prove it. Prove who I've hurt or prove who I've killed.
yeah, but in their mind, as they've been told, they believe this narrative, that they believe that this is health, right? So how do you, through the natural law philosophy, how do you get them to understand that my individual rights are what actually protect you, not me having to do something to protect you. There's a good video that just came out today. It was posted on one of the What on Earth is Happening Facebook pages. It was an older woman who had been through the Holocaust. I don't know if you guys saw that. It was like some type of health freedom page, but she got into the concept of do no harm in medicine, and that's the basis of medicine, and that is based on the individual's rights, not this greater good idea. And once you get into this greater good idea, you're violating that. And yeah, that's one that gets twisted on us. And if you're not prepared for that, you can get frustrated in that argument, because it's easy for them. It's like the vaccine thing. I'm used to it because being in the vaccine fight, you hear this a lot in the debate, where you don't have a right to make me sick. You don't have a right to spread disease. And I wrote something once, I have to find it. I think it was like a post on Facebook, but I think I've saved it in my notes. But it was about the measles and how the measles are inherent in nature, right? Getting sick is inherent in nature. It actually is a part of natural law. We all assume the risk of getting sick and getting ill. And there is no way that I can be responsible for your health, right? And so, yeah, it's an interesting one compared to all the other issues that I had written down, because I did write down human trafficking as a topic to talk about. But a lot of times I think in that one, I think we are the ones who are bringing up that concept, and then people in their minds, they automatically shut off.
Or try to minimize it, right?
Right. If we talk about Joe Biden's a pedophile, then it's like people are they're gonna reject that. Like one woman walked by us and was like, "Hail Satan," right? Because we had a sign that like the mask is a satanic ritual, and she's like, "Hail Satan." And so it's like those debates, we could avoid those. It's like we can keep it to there's an agenda, but not necessarily go so deep with them as to like how dark and evil it all gets.
Yeah, they have to get that. That's like I was talking before. They have to get the bug, the curiosity bug, and get in deeper themselves before they go do that hard work to get all the way in there. But how to get them interested to start making that push is part of what we're trying to talk about. Is to get a hook in someone, just to plant a seed, basically. And I think just being out there does that to some extent, and doing what we're doing, just keep trying in different ways.
Yeah, a good tactic too with content creating is shorter videos, 20 to 30 minutes, but direct it to certain topics, like the vaccine, or do an Epstein video with literally Epstein in the title, because I mean, shit, it's pretty much lightweight viral, all the people that have been looking that up, but tie it in to the underlining truth. You could do that with pretty much any situation. And that's a good way to kind of have a wider net or audience to kind of reel people in, Do it on the masks. You can do that on really anything.
So say like the money conversation I was talking about, we start talking about the creature from Jekyll Island and how they had this secret meeting and they sort of slipped in this whole Federal Reserve thing, and the Federal Reserve now just can print money. And for every dollar that's printed, they're making up $700,000 at a bank every time you borrow a dollar. They're just out of thin air, just making up all this money. So isn't that kind of like a religious system where you're believing that this whole thing is going to work, but it's really just people making it up? And we all know one of these days it's going to fail. It's all just like a made up hot air balloon that's going to pop at any moment. Maybe we should stop believing in lies. What about that?
Oh
And
yeah,
trust in each other and trade our work for actual goods.
definitely.
Agorism, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can take it in many angles. You can bring it as deep as you want, but um, like it's just fine tuning your attributes. Really, that's what it comes down to. And I mean, the information's out there. It is out there, and I know there's got to be some websites that have kind of consolidated a lot of the information, but I kind of like having it available, you know, physically to give to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that in terms of the human trafficking issue, because obviously it does come up a lot, that the information we should have on that is going back a little further. So the
Sure.
a conspiracy of silence documentary about how this was going on in the 80s.
The
And then,
Franklin cover up,
right, the
John
Frank,
DeCamp. Yeah, he wrote a book
exactly.
on that.
And the Finders, Derek Bros has a good piece on the Finders. And going back to today I looked up the Johnny Gosh documentary, right? I don't know if you guys know, that's that kid. He was like the first kid on a milk carton, and he got like kidnapped in like 82. He was like 13 years old on a paper route in Des Moines, Iowa. And his mom started hearing, and basically she did the investigation on her own because the police wouldn't help her. They said he was a runaway, but there was the word going out that it was a human trafficking ring. And then she got this package that had pictures of him tied up. And it's like it's like if we lead people back there and show them like it's not all about Pizzagate, we were on this way before Pizzagate. There's a deeper system at play here. It's not all about Jeffrey Epstein. I just feel like if that issue is going to come up, I want to lead people more to the root of that, because in all honesty, I don't really trust the Pizzagate narrative completely at this point. I feel like they are smart enough now that they are manipulating some of that information, and it's meant to kind of like keep us trapped up here, worrying about all of this drama happening now and not remembering the root issues that happened, or the root conspiracies, for lack of a better term, that really the truth movement is built on.
It's a lot of misdirection tactics, really. They kind of feed people certain categories and topics, information, and then people just kind of cling on to that, thinking that that's it, that's the one, and they just follow it. It's like leaving, it's just misdirection. It's an actual tactic where you're Jeffrey Epstein. That's it. That's the gold. That's the gold mine of that's going to take him down. It's like, no, he's just a minion. It's way fucking deeper than that. You got no idea how deep it is. And so Kathy O'Brien's another one people should check out from the earlier days.
That's the next one I was going to say.
Yeah, MK Ultra. She I mean, videos and books are just, they're just off the chain. They're so good.
Putting her on the list.
Yeah, that's one of those subjects I use for inspiration myself. When I'm want to get myself to be a little more brave or speak out or do something, I start thinking about all the children that are being harmed. And I have a deep care for children because I've had my own, and I've always been around kids and been a camp counselor. So just the thought of kids being trapped and abused and kidnapped, whenever I think about that, it gives me inspiration to keep working on this stuff, because it's happening. It's happening on a large scale. And that is a good subject to bring to people's attention. And that's something I think we can work on. Maybe a good picture or something, like you were saying, like a milk carton kind of picture with a kid. And don't you care, kind of question. Like,
like those pharmaceutical commercials. Did you know?
guilt people, right? Guilt people
Did you
into,
know, Dad?
Oh, that's a hilarious, man. That's a great idea. Start using their advertisement, their stupid ass advertisements, and just flipping them on them with just truths.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
yeah,
well, and the problem with like what you guys were saying, like the Epstein thing or the Pizzagate things that are in the media, is where people go with that is they always go like, oh yeah, they're getting caught now. The authorities are getting them. You
right.
know,
Yeah,
they're doing it. They're going to catch them. And
yeah,
somehow we have to bring that back to, no, this is about us understanding morality and rooting out the evil in our everyday lives. And it will catch up to those people if we all start doing that. But it takes all of us, not just me.
yeah.
Totally. Yep.
For every one Jeffrey Epstein, there's like how many criminals getting away? Like they all did the same thing or worse.
Yeah, and that's the misdirection that I'm talking about, because you know what it does? It keeps people focused on the external and not focused internally with them and their behavior and their mind and what they need to do, their responsibility, and that's change themselves.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's what the misdirection is really doing. It's say, look over here, this is it, this is the big scene right here. In reality, it's inside. Every single person needs to look inside and confront that shadow, those and be honest with themselves. So it's
that's so true. It's like I got we caught Jeffrey Epstein, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. Little do you know, it's been going on your whole life and you've been ignoring it, and
Yeah.
but yeah, I wrote this quote that they call it Pizzagate because they know everyone loves pizza so much that they won't want to believe it.
Oh,
Like,
shit.
think about it, right? Like,
Too good to be true.
they knew, right? They're like, what could we use that would make people just reject this idea? Do it in a pizza parlor, because
Yeah.
think about
Everybody
all
likes
the
pizza.
everyone loves pizza part. You go to the arcade, like pizza is like Americana.
Dude, absolutely. And that's the ego right there too, right? It feeds the ego, because the ego likes security and protection, and then it does that by separation.
Yeah.
So it's just like you said, oh, they got them, they're going down, I don't
Mhm.
need to do anything. It's also feeding on the savior complex, right? Like, Trump's the truth, he's gonna end the cabal, take down the deep state. No, stupid.
Yeah,
It doesn't
exactly.
work that way. So yeah.
Another.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say we just got to stop with the justification. I was thinking about that word before we started this meeting, justification, how people are always trying to justify why we need these systems or justify why things are the way they are. And what that word actually means is to make, or to make just. And that's part of that whole false idea that we can just make up rules for other people and enforce them, and that's okay. And that's what we're trying to break down. So the message to us on the personal level is stop justifying evil, you know? But go ahead,
Right.
John.
Definitely, man.
So another list that I had written down was for order followers, police, and military. But yeah, just have some basic information explaining the philosophy of natural law and how these, um, these institutions are in direct violation of natural law. And so, like when that police officer came up to us, could have handed her that, or at least have that in our information, because you want to reach those people too.
Yeah, absolutely. Police in the
Good,
military are
good
gonna
luck with those.
yeah, police in the military are gonna be the last ones to wake up for sure. But you know what's crazy, and order followers, that's a great topic because I mean, look what's going on right now with COVID, the masks, the order followers are fucking everywhere. It's everybody out in the streets that's wearing the mask just cuz. That's why it's a great question to ask. Why are you wearing the mask? How long will you wear it for? You know, these kind of questions totally mess with people's psyche. But
I think that actually subject probably has messed with the minds of a lot of police officers, because I think a lot of police officers are kind of in the point like, really, do I want to enforce this rule? I mean, you can see a look on a lot of people's faces. They're going along with it, but they don't completely agree with it, or they tried to fight it a little bit, but it was just too much of a force to battle. But you have to wonder, because I've seen several cases of local areas where the police chief came out and said, I'm not going to enforce this mask mandate thing. And so maybe there's more hope than I think, with the police. Maybe something like this will help divide them. So maybe you're right. It's just a matter of having the information ready for them, and who knows who's ready. Who knows?
you want to know you want to know I honestly think it's like the mass thing is kind of peanuts for the order followers, the police and military, but who would be most likely to check out the information, because I've actually had direct and great conversations with people, is vets. They've been there. They've seen their so-called country, their government shit on them and use them as just fucking meat out in the war, and what's really going on. And when they're over there and they've seen crazy shit, and they've had that firsthand experience. And so yeah, I mean, 5 or 6 good conversations. 3 of the people I actually know really well, and they are, borderline anarchists. They just haven't actually defined what they know. They just know that their government is shit and treated them like shit, and kind of traded them in. So vets, I think that would be a good spot to hit. The vet halls, or just veterans in general.
Yeah. And I was thinking too, like in talking about posting up in front of a church, maybe one day post up in front of a police station. I went by the police station in Walnut Creek a few times, and you had a lot of Black Lives Matter protests out there. Well, why not have a natural law education demonstration in front of a police station? And if you can hand 5 policemen, a flyer, or even one policeman, a packet of information, at least you get them thinking in those terms, because that's the most we're trying to do, right? I mean, obviously anything more than that is extra and is beautiful, but we're just trying to get people to start thinking about this concept.
You just gave me an idea, John. What if we made like a little flyer that looks just like a ticket, that they put in your windshield, and put it on a windshield, and then right when people walk up, they're like, oh shit, I got a ticket. And then you look at it, and it's all about morality and truth and natural law.
That's a good idea.
That's pretty good. I could design one up. That's a good idea. I like it.
Never
like
know what'll work, huh?
But I mean, ultimately, we're dropping seeds. we're dropping seeds, and having the website, I want to make some brochures with the QR codes, easy to scan, take you right to the site. You can do multiple ones with different sections of your website with different parts of the information, but dropping seeds. I mean, I will say this on a positive note right now, people are questioning shit right now, because I think almost everybody has that feeling that something's wrong at the core of their their soul, that it's been wrong. Something we're doing is not right, because it's just progressively going downhill. And so I think it's a good opportunity. It's just about getting it out there as much as possible to as many numbers as we can, and see who bites.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys having this conversation with me, because I'm going to take all of this information. I've been taking notes and continue to refine the personal message I'm working with, continue to share it with you guys, continue to help you help me refine it even more, and get this message on point so that when we do go out there, we're that much more effective.
Appreciate it, brother. Likewise.
Yeah, great talking with you guys. A lot of good brainstorming tonight, and inspiration and ideas for the next work.
Absolutely. And if any of the viewers, got any comments, or any of the future teachers, hit us up.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yeah, and always remember, put something good in the air.
Gia.
Later, guys.